Welcome back to the Athlete's Edge Coaches Edition podcast, your front row seat into learning from the experts who are leading the way in sports coaching. Our mission is to introduce you to impactful coaches from every sport so you can provide the best support for your student athletes and provide them with the best opportunities as they look to advance their sporting careers. Today, I'm excited to introduce our special guest, Joe Paolucci, owner of Patriots Club, and their specialty is providing youth with opportunities to improve their skills. And I know I probably butchered your name, Joe, but why don't you tell us how to pronounce it properly, and then tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. No, you did pretty good, Tony. It's Joe Paolucci. I own the Patriots Athletic Club. We're located in Rockland, Massachusetts. We have 10 baseball teams and 10 softball teams here that we run, and we provide year-round training for our athletes. We're only in year 4. We opened in 2021 was our first year. So we're about to start our 4th year. And it's been going great. We've got a lot of great athletes that have come through here and finished the program already, and we've got a lot that are smack in the middle of it. We have teams as low as 9U all the way up to the 17U level for both baseball and softball. So that's been going very well. In addition to that, I'll be entering my 10th season as the head baseball coach at Weymouth High School. Weymouth is a public school located about 20 minutes south of Boston. We had a really good year the last couple of years with Weymouth. We won the league title in 2023. I think we finished 15th or 16th in the state last year.
Nice,
and we've got some really good talent coming back this year. So I'm hoping for another really good season out of those guys. And then finally, in the summertime, year-round I'm the commissioner of the Futures Collegiate Baseball League, which is a summer collegiate baseball league here in New England. So between those 3 jobs, I'm pretty busy year-round, I'd say.
I was going to say, do you get time to sleep?
I try to when I can, but it's tough.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Especially in the summer when I have people calling me and complaining about getting ejected from games and bad calls that umpires make and things of that nature. So
yeah, we got to love what we can't control, right? If we can't control it, we complain about it a lot.
Right.
So tell me, you've obviously got a lot of experience in the field of baseball. What are your core beliefs when you approach building these athletes?
Great question. They have to be all in on the sport. Which is tough at the youth level, the high school level, especially for kids that play multiple sports. But I feel like you've got to love it. You have to love it in order to get better at it. So in other words, you could be a super athlete that's just going to be good because you're athletic and you're young and you're in the prime of your life and you're going to be good just because of that. But you're never really going to make it to that next level unless you absolutely love the game and you want to get better at it. I've got tons of players here that aren't all that skilled, but have dedicated all of their free time to getting better, and you can see that improvement, which is the most rewarding part of being a coach. So for me, number one, like you've got to be all in, and unfortunately, I think for the landscape of youth baseball now, that means that you kind of have to play club baseball, and it's really just a matter of keeping up with the Joneses. Though it's when I was younger, club sports didn't exist. So I didn't pick up a baseball glove until it was time to play baseball, but that was okay because nobody else was. Right? Our competitors weren't doing it. They were also playing basketball and hockey and wrestling in the winter. So we didn't have to worry about that. But nowadays, kids are specializing in certain sports and they're playing year round. So if you're not committed somehow in the off-season months, unfortunately, you're getting behind the eight ball.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's really interesting from the new athlete kind of mindset and perspective, because there is this specializing in one sport. I'm interested. What are your thoughts on that? I know I have mine,
Mhm.
but what do you think about that? Should athletes play multiple sports? Should they focus from a young age to the one sport?
Yeah, no, I'm full believer in playing multiple sports. I think, especially in high school, I think kids should be playing
Hmm.
three sports,
Hmm.
especially the really good athletes. Um, you're working, you're building different skill set, but you're working different muscles, right? You're staying competitive. You're staying in great shape. I think all those things are really, really important. Um, so in other words, Tony, like if I've got a baseball player that is playing a winter sport, I'm probably not even going to talk to him until his season is over. But I'm referring more to the kids that aren't playing a sport.
Hmm.
If a kid is on my baseball team in the spring, and he's not doing anything in the winter months, I fully expect to see him at my facility here, at least a few days a week.
Yeah,
Again, that's just the nature of competitiveness today, right? In order to
yeah.
stay competitive, in order to stay on top, you've got to keep up with the Joneses, as I said before. If you're not playing another sport, you need to be in this one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I love that. Thank you. And Joe, when you think about these athletes playing multiple sports, baseball focused on the one sport, how important is the whole mindset when it comes to that, and how does that playing other sport affect and impact the mindset of an athlete?
That's a good question. I don't. I think it just keeps them competitive. Like
Mm,
if you're playing another sport, if for the guys right now that are playing, just finishing up their football seasons or their soccer seasons, it's keeping them competitive. It's keeping them in great shape. Um, in again, to relate it back to high school, you're playing against the same schools and the same players that you're going to be seeing in the spring and the baseball season. So to remain competitive with them, I think is really important. So it just the mindset of being competitive,
yeah.
being in great shape, and wanting to compete, I think is super important.
Yeah. And the reason I ask that is if I'm a good baseball player, I might not be the best soccer player, basketball player, football player, right? I might not be. So I'm going to struggle in these other sports. And personally, I think the struggle in another sport that you're not great at actually helps and transfers to the sport that you are great at, because now it
Yeah.
gets you into the mindset of accepting and understanding what struggle is.
Yeah, and we bring up a great point too. Like, what about leadership, right? So, like,
Hmm.
if let's say the sport that you're really good at, let's say that you're the captain of that team, but currently you're on a team where you're not the captain, and you don't even play all that much. I think that gives you another skill set in how to deal with certain players on your team. The players that aren't always happy because they're not getting all the playing time. Right now, you're one of those
Yeah.
people. How are you going to react to that? You know, I have an expression here. I'll ask a kid. I'll say, "Are you a 4 for 4 guy or an 0 for 4 guy?"
Mm.
Right? And when you ask that question, somebody would say, "Well, I'm a 4 for 4 guy, right? Like I'm a good player. I'm going to go 4 for 4." But the question is more about your mindset, and it's,
Hmm.
would you rather go 0 for 4 and win the game, or 4 for 4 and lose the game?
Hmm.
And I'd love to ask that question to kids because they see the wheels spinning. Some of them are afraid to answer it because the answer is, I want to go 4 for 4. I don't care if we lose. I want to go 4 for 4
Yeah.
and go home and tell my parents that I had a great day. Um, Not always the best mindset though for winning baseball games or winning any game for that matter.
Right, absolutely. I say that to the soccer players that I coach. If you play with everything that you've got in any given game and walk off losing the game 1-0, you can still hold your head up high because you played and giving it everything that you've got. Right, that
Yep,
that makes you naturally a winner. And if you play with everything you've got, then the chances of you winning are that much higher, obviously. So yeah, it's
absolutely.
definitely mindset.
Mhm.
Love that. Thank you. And so with that idea in mind, can you share bleh, I'll say that again. Can you share some strategies you use that go beyond the typical playbook that help these athletes in times like that? I mean, you've got huge experience
Yeah.
covering all of the things that you do. What are some of those strategies?
Yeah, so I talk a lot I talk a lot to them about hitting and how difficult it is, right?
Mm,
And we've all heard um, that Ted Williams is saying when, if you go 3 for 10, you're in the Hall of Fame, right? So in other words, if you fail at your job 7 out of 10 times, you're
yeah.
still considered one of the best to ever do it. So I love that. I'm sure they make fun of me, because I say that saying so many times to them, but it's so true. When you see a kid get so down on himself because he struck out, or maybe he hit the ball hard and made an out, I always like to pull them aside and say, "Hey, do you have any idea how difficult it is to hit a baseball?
Mm,
Like, don't be so hard on yourself, right? Because
yeah.
you can go 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, but guess what? You're coming up to bat in the ninth inning. Like, you're going to get that one last chance to hit. And if your mindset is already blown up, right?
Hmm.
If you've already made the decision mentally that you're beat and you're done for the day, well then, let me know now so I can put a pinch hitter in the game for you, right?
Hmm.
I don't care who you are, So I talk to them a lot about that, a lot about failure and how it's like you don't want to accept it. You don't want to accept failure, but you've got to understand that it's part of the game. And
Right.
you're never going to get over that hump, right? Unless you bat 1,000, right? Or unless you
Hmm.
bat 501, I should say, you're still failing at your job more times than you're succeeding. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
a difficult mindset, and so we talk a lot about that with them throughout the season.
Yeah. And so on that note, how do you help these athletes work through the ages? Because you've got the collegiate summer program, you've got the high school program, you've got a younger program. Obviously, as they get bigger, stronger, faster, they're going to come up with some other mental struggles and physical struggles. How do you help them overcome going to that next level?
Yeah, and we see so much of it now. Like the whole face of college baseball has changed, right?
Mm,
Because ever since COVID, with kids, we got 27-year-olds playing college baseball now still, and with the transfer portal and with the NIL, the opportunities for some of these older kids aren't there anymore. So you do start to see that frustration. Um, kids that would have been drafted a few years ago, they're not getting drafted anymore because the draft is reduced so much. It used to be 20 something rounds. Now I don't even know how many rounds there are, but there's only 4 or 5 or something. But um, so the opportunities for these kids to play are less than they were years ago. So I certainly see a frustration in that as they start to kind of fizzle out, and whether it's in summer collegiate ball or in college ball in the springtime. It's difficult. It really is. This is such a hard game. Um, we like to have older kids come in here to the facility and talk to our younger kids about this as much as we can throughout the off season. In fact, we have he's actually working out here right now. We have Ben Rice, who plays for the New York Yankees.
that's cool.
He's in here. He works out in the winter, but we love it when he comes and he talks to our players about his path and how difficult it was for him to make it, all the way from high school all the way up through to the major league. So it's just really different. Everybody has a different path. Everybody has a different experience. Um, this game is just so it's just so mental, and the people that
Yeah.
succeed and make it quote unquote all the way are the ones that are able to mentally get over some of these challenges.
Yeah. That that really fascinates me because I'm more into team sports, as in soccer, rugby. That's what I've played growing up. But when you've got these young athletes, and you said earlier they've got to be all in, that's what you're looking for from these athletes. How do you help these athletes stay on track, being all in? What's the thing that kind of keeps them coming back? What's your special sauce? I guess I'm asking within that.
Yeah, I think giving them the opportunity, I think, to be part of something is important, right? So like with our club here, like I think we want to make sure that their uniforms look nice. They have nice sweatshirts. They have nice practice gear. They wear these things to school. They wear them with pride. Um, feeling part of our program, I think, is important, right? Um, it probably, kind of helps them academically too, knowing that, depending on mom and dad, hey, if I don't do good in school this year, I'm not going to be able to play for the Patriots, or I'm not going to be able to play for my high school or my town team or whatever. Um, so I think giving them a sense of pride, giving them a place to go, giving them a place where they can feel comfortable, I think really certainly helps them with that.
Yeah, cool. I like that. That's a great answer. As humans, we want to be and need to belong to something bigger than ourselves. Correct. I like
Absolutely.
that. So here's something, just thinking about like practical tips for the younger athletes. If you could go back in time and say something to your younger athlete self, what would you tell him?
Wow, great question. Do better in school. Number one. Make sure you study more. Make sure you listen to your parents. Make sure that you eat better, right? Because those habits that you develop when you're younger, you're going to have when you're older. But outside of those two things, and I'll keep it specific to baseball, because these types of, my facility that I have now, like this didn't exist when I was younger. There was no one-on-one coaching. I think what I would tell myself is figure out who you are as a hitter, who I am, what's my swing look like? What am I trying to accomplish up at bat? I would probably have one or two lessons with a professional, and then I would try to work on those things by myself. But that's the message here, is I would try to learn as much as I could, but I would try to do it on my own, because, I do see, and don't get me wrong, because it's great for business, but we see a lot of kids here that are just doing private lesson after private lesson after private lesson. And at the end of the day, that coach is not going to be in the batter's box with them, right? They've got to be able to figure it out on their own. Right. And so I think just having those skills, I think from a younger age, being able to recognize that you have those skills. Like for another example would be, I tell our kids when they go in for a private lesson, make sure you tell the coach what you're trying to work on. It's your lesson. He's working for you, not the other way around. It shouldn't just be the instructor telling you do A, B, and C. It should be, hey, I'm really working on, trying to go the other way, or I'm trying to work on, not striking out, or whatever the case may be, and then let the instructor cater the lesson towards that. So I think just kind of knowing a little bit more about who I was as a player, and being able to translate that over into my own game, I think would be important.
Right. Yeah. And I love that, because young people work so hard to fit in, they fail to stand out. And we want standout athletes. The unfortunate thing about standing out is they have to be a little bit different, because they have to be themselves.
Sure.
And I think young athletes are terrified of being themselves, because people might laugh at them. Their swing might be a little bit odd, and they might be whatever it is, right? It's this mindset of okay, it's okay to be me in this. And so, okay, within that, shifting gear for the parents, what would you say is the most valuable role a parent can play in supporting their child's journey in sports?
Yeah, great question. I mean, just be a spectator. Quite honestly, be the spectator. Support them. Support your player, number one. Or let me back up. Support the team first, right? Support your player second, and support the coach third. Okay. And the reason why I put it in there is because number one, no one player, even if it's your own kid, is bigger than the team.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the number two, we want to make sure that we're supporting our own child and making sure that they have everything they need. But finally, you've got to support the coach, whether you believe in him or not, because it creates this like toxic level, whether it's at the dinner table or in the car ride home or whatever. And it really does drive the whole team down. And I know that that's, most parents would probably hear that and roll their eyes, but I think for us, for coaches, we've been through it. We understand how it works, right?
Yeah.
And I've had enough conversations with parents and kids over the years to know the way that the conversation's going at the dinner table at night.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I would just really love to see parents just support their kids, be there to watch all their games, and but you don't need to be in the dugout. You don't need to be over there and giving them a sip of water, every inning, and let them be with their teammates. Let them do their own thing. You can be without your son for 2 to 3 hours while he plays baseball.
Yeah.
But really just as a spectator, I think is the main role there.
Yeah. And I love that because it actually gives the student athlete, it gives them their own self back. They can just be themselves out there. The autonomy of being your own person out there without parents. I love the idea of any athlete playing for an audience of one, playing for themselves. And that means not playing for their parents, because too many times athletes play for their parents to please them, to keep them happy, and to make them proud, which is understandable. Yep. But if an athlete can learn, again, if I play my best, my parents are going to be proud of me anyway. I don't need to prove myself. So
sure. Yeah, and I was fortunate enough. My parents went to all my games when I was younger, and I enjoyed it. Didn't really mean much to me until after until I was done playing. But just knowing somebody's there to watch you and watch you perform, I think can bring the best out of somebody. So, it is important that they're there, and they don't necessarily have to do it for them, but I think it's good to have somebody to kind of perform for.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, 100%. What would you say to a young coach who's just stepping into the field? What advice would you give them?
Don't assume that the players know anything. You've got to teach them everything. So
yeah.
Well, I say this because I'll just tell a quick story. I used to I was in my first coaching job was under this gentleman by the name of Joe Paolucci. He was the Brookline High head coach for I think 30 years, and I was his assistant. And we had a situation where we practiced the suicide squeeze play the day before in practice, and the next day in the game it came up and we put it on. And Tony, I don't know how familiar you are with the suicide squeeze, but you've got to get the bunt down. You've got to bunt it. You can't pull the bat back. Well, this particular kid pulled the bunt back, catcher caught it, tagged our runner out. And so at the end of the inning, I went in and talked to the kid, and he said he didn't know that he had to bunt it. He thought that if it was outside, he didn't have to bunt and all that. So I had this conversation with the coach and the head coach, and he goes, Joe, you can't assume they know anything. He goes, you got to treat them like they just came to this planet and are learning the game from scratch.
Right.
And I've found over the years, you can't hold kids accountable to anything if you don't practice things and you don't teach them things.
Right.
So I can get mad at a kid because he didn't get a bunt down, but then immediately I'm thinking to myself, well, how much have we practiced this in the last 2 weeks? Because I know he's taken 300 swings, but how many times have we sat there and practiced him bunting? So I can't really get all that mad because I'm not dedicating any time to him getting better at that. So yeah, it's just, the answer to the question is make sure that, you're teaching them everything that you're going to be holding them accountable to, I guess.
Sweet. That's a great answer. Someone told me once on the soccer world, I'm right-footed. And so he says, you've got to teach everyone as if you, me, are striking the ball with your left foot, because I'm horrible with my left foot. So it was that breaking it down, every element, feeling awkward in that way. So
sure.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, fantastic. All right, it's time to shake things up a little with our lightning round and learn a little bit more about the person behind the business. I'm going to ask you a series of just 10 questions, and I want you to just give me the first answer that springs to mind. You ready to go?
Sure.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Cats or dogs?
Neither. I'm probably the only non-pet guy in the world.
If you could only grab one weapon or item during a zombie apocalypse, what would it be?
A gun, I guess.
Okay, yeah. I thought you were going to say a baseball bat. Favorite quote or phrase that you think about often?
Probably the Ted Williams one that I mentioned earlier.
Nice.
If you fail at your job 7 out of 10 times, you're still in the Hall of Fame.
Right. Fantastic. Favorite movie?
I'm a big Rocky guy, so probably any one of the Rocky movies.
Okay. Favorite show?
Probably The Sopranos.
Nice. I like that show. Favorite book?
Ugh, book. It's been a while. I got to be honest with you. I'll have to pass on that one. I'll have to think about that one.
Okay. One bucket list item that you've already accomplished.
Open my own business.
Nice.
Yep.
So then what's one bucket list item that you haven't yet accomplished?
Win a state championship in high school baseball.
Nice. Cool. I like that. And this is the big one. What's the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome and one lesson that you've learned from it?
That's a great question. Probably just self-doubt, right? Like, I'll put it in context of opening the business. It was something that, I been thinking about for years that I wanted to do, but you can always find 10 reasons why you shouldn't do it. And then
Yeah.
finally I just told myself I'm going to stop making excuses and I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other until it gets done. And that's how it happened here.
Well done. Congratulations. That inner voice can be that can be a horrible critic, that's for sure. Yeah,
Yep.
it is. It is. So, Joe, if any of our viewers would like to comment, collaborate with you, commit to finding you somehow, where would they find you? How would they get in touch with you?
So I think I'm on all the social stuff. Is that how they're saying it these days?
I think so.
But my email address, my email address is Joseph Paolucci 34@gmail.com. That's probably the easiest way to connect with me.
Okay. And the website?
Our website here is patriotsathletic.club.com. And then you can also check out thefuturesleague.com. That's our summer collegiate league.
Sweet. Joe, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your insights. I hope that there are athletes out there that have learned something from you, coaches that have learned something from you, and certainly parents. So thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, and thank you for tuning in. As always, we're here to provide you and your student athlete with the content to grow and develop. Join us next week for another episode of Athlete's Edge, Coaches Edition podcast. See you there. Thanks for listening. And